So, welcome everyone. I do hope you can hear me. I'm just looking at the chat there. So, if you can actually see us and hear us, that would be fantastic. Just give us some confirmation of that. Anyway, welcome everyone to this very special broadcast. I've been joined by Grandmaster Paul van der Sterren. That's a very anglicised way of saying your name, Paul. Paul van der Sterren, or something like
That's
that.
good. Yes, yes, yeah. But the English version is fine, no problem at all.
Okay, good. So, anyway, very nice to see you, Paul. For those that don't know Paul, he's a two-time Dutch champion, also a former World Championship candidate, no less, and he's just written or he's just had published two books in black and white. His autobiography, which Paul, do you have a copy to hand? There we are. This wonderful tome. So this is Paul's autobiography in black and white, his chess autobiography. And also he's brought out, or New in Chess has brought out this book, Mindful Chess, with a strapline, The Spiritual Journey of a Professional Chess Player, which is absolutely fascinating. Paul, welcome. It's really nice to see you. How are
Thank
things?
you. Yes, nice to see you too.
Well, we're going to be. What I've done is I've selected a few games, and hopefully that will trigger some memories for you, and we can just discuss the book along the way.
Mhm.
So, I mean, my first question is actually, how did you decide to write your chess autobiography? What prompted you to do this?
Um, I'm not quite sure, but I think I've had it in the back of my mind since I started chess. I think I was so fascinated by famous players writing a game best games collection or something even more autobiographical. And well, this wasn't a conscious thing, but I'm quite sure that from early on, I must have had this idea in the back of my mind. And when I quit playing, when I ended my active chess career, I suddenly had time to write. And probably I had nothing else to do. I suppose that's it. And then suddenly there was time for this ancient idea in the back of my mind, and it surfaced. And I just started with my very oldest material and took it from there. I suppose I just enjoyed looking at all these early games and newspaper cuttings and things like that. So I
Well,
discovered I really liked the work, and that's sort of motivated me to carry it through to the end.
Well, I can say that I have over the past week. I've only been reading the book over the past in black and white for the past week, and I can say that it's it's been a really enjoyable experience and fascinating because I don't think I've read a chess book quite like it because you are so candid with your thoughts. And actually, I've always found that very frustrating about a lot of chess
Mm.
autobiographies that
Yeah,
they sort of go, oh, well, I won this tournament, I did this, I did
yeah,
that. But
yeah.
actually, players aren't very forthcoming with their
Mm.
feelings, with
No.
their thoughts. So actually, I think you've been very brave in really being so candid with your
Mm.
feelings. And I mean, one question I have is that did you have any qualms about kind of letting it all out?
Not really, not yet. Um, I think I probably wanted to know these things myself when I started writing the book. I think I wanted to find out what motivated me, what what took me up, what took me down,
Hmm.
and what kept me going all these years. I think it was a journey of discovery for myself.
Yeah.
So maybe people might even call it therapeutic,
Hmm.
if that's English.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think it did me a lot of good actually to do this work. I think I worked on it for 3 or 4 years,
Yeah. Well,
and sort of working it all out.
yeah. No, I completely understand that, and I think it really comes across in that way that you're going back and you're rediscovering how you felt about things.
Yeah, yeah.
So what I'd like to do is I've selected a few games, and
Hmm.
perhaps this will trigger some thoughts for you. So
Hmm.
the first game I've selected is against Jonathan Spielman,
Hmm.
one of my English colleagues, and this
Yes,
was played in Vlissingen in 1974. So
yes.
this is right at the start. So what was the competition actually?
This was the traditional match between England and the Netherlands, which uh, started a tradition which I think started sometime after World War II.
Mm,
It wasn't an annual thing, but it has had it existed until 1975. The last time it was held in England, and this time it was in the Dutch town of Vlissingen, a coastal town. So I there was a junior board and a women's board, I suppose. Yes, and Jonathan and I were playing on the junior board. I had already played against Jonathan in the Glorny Cup 2 years earlier, when I was thoroughly crushed. So I had a huge respect for him when I started playing this game, actually. I was sort of frightened of him.
okay, well that's very interesting because you might have been
Mm.
frightened, but we have a nice open Sicilian
Yeah.
that on the board, which of course guarantees a really good fight. And
Mm.
Jonathan, yes, he sometimes played this classical variation, and yes, he liked to play with Bishop D7 and Rook
Mm.
C8. I should say that for anyone watching online, if you have questions and comments, then please do chip in. It'd be very nice to hear from you. So in those days, you were an E4 player.
Yes, I played E4 exclusively. And I think it was around this time that I started playing main lines. I suppose in my early years, I had stuck to side lines, which didn't require a lot of energy. And this may actually have been the very first time that I played this Rouser variation with black. It certainly was one of the first times. So that was also very exciting for me to play a new variation,
Hmm.
my
Well,
new repertoire of mainline Sicilians.
well, it's quite funny because you write as a little forward for
Mhm.
this game. You say the next game carries a little more weight. It reflects some of the power of my new white repertoire. In fact, in it you can discern a kind of foreshadowing of what my opening treatment would look like years later. In broad terms, play healthy, classical variations and react sharply if your opponent plays something funny. Ian Rogers once formulated this approach as follows: follow the book. 2. When the opponent makes a new move, assume this must be bad. 3. Refute. An excellent method, except when your opponent's new move is actually good.
Yes,
But it's
yes,
nicely put. I think Ian is spot
yeah,
on with that actually.
yeah. It's very well put. It was about somebody else, but it could have been about me.
Yeah. Well,
Mm.
it's funny. I was discussing this with our old friend Julian Hodgson yesterday,
Oh
actually.
yes, yeah.
And
Who
Julian,
always played something funny, but he had a lot of very strong funny ideas.
well, a mixed bag.
Well, I suppose so.
Yeah, but he was saying, yeah, Alexander Halefman said exactly the same thing to him.
Mm.
He said, "Little secret, Julian." He said, "Just play the main lines."
Mm.
You can't go wrong. Well, you can
No,
go wrong.
that's basically it.
Yeah,
Yes.
with white, play the main lines.
Yeah.
So we come to this move.
Hmm. Yes, and now the main line of the normal move is, I suppose, bishop e7.
Yeah, and
And
Jonathan played Rook G8. I mean, can you remember? Oh, of course, you won't remember exactly how you were feeling after he played Rook G8. I mean,
yeah,
this is an
I do
extraordinary
remember.
move. Yeah,
I do
really.
remember a feeling of shock, but also a feeling of this can't be good. Assume this must be bad is what I must have done,
Hmm.
and then play as sharply as possible to find a refutation. I mean, I realize that Rook G8 is a very original move, of course, anticipating a capture on F6, and he doesn't mind about sacrificing a pawn. But on the other hand, I just couldn't believe that this was a sound move. And I
Yeah.
think I felt very confident from this moment on.
Well, let's just see how the game progressed, and then I'm going to throw a question out
Mhm.
to our viewers. So, yeah, Rook takes C3. Well, I mean, this kind of thing, in some ways, is typical of Jonathan. Probably in those days more than later,
Yeah, yeah,
because actually, Jonathan Spielman, for those who don't know him, actually he likes technical positions. Actually, you know,
yeah,
a rather brilliant endgame player, but he's
yeah.
not afraid to play very sharp chess as well.
No, no.
So let me just progress a little bit further. And
Mm,
now F5, you're starting to open things up.
yeah.
And Rook E1, this is all looks very nice. So Rook G4.
Mm.
And okay, so this is where things start to crash open.
Now I'm going for the kill.
Yeah. Right, I'm going to stop the game there,
Mm.
and let's see if anyone actually comes up with an answer. How do you play as white in this position? Let's see if anyone's out there for a start. So white to play. Be nice if we could actually hear from somebody. Um, yeah, I mean, you must have played against Jonathan on many occasions over the years.
Many times,
Mm.
so we are about the same age. As I said, I lost that very first game in the Glorny Cup in 1972, and I was very impressed by his power of his playing. Then, funnily enough, the next four games I won. Those were all still played in our junior days.
Mm.
And then afterwards, when we were sort of grown-ups,
Mm.
I had he was a very, very tough opponent for me. I lost some, perhaps four games, 4 or 5 games, some draws. So he got his revenge for the junior
Mm.
disasters when we were a bit older and when he had gained full strength, of course.
Mm.
You can see in this game he was still a bit irrational. And yeah, so years later he managed to be a little bit more realistic, and then he was very much he was very much stronger than when he was a junior player.
Well, we have Vicente from Brazil. Nice to hear from you, Vicente from Brazil, who suggests Rook C1 in this position.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's an interesting move.
I suppose it's not a bad move,
Yeah,
but
it looks okay.
there's something better.
Well, we have someone called Lucky Left Arm,
Mm.
and who's suggesting Rook takes E5 check, and we have Salih Chebechi, who's also suggesting Rook takes E5 check. So yeah, I think they get the medal. Although Rook C1 is interesting. Thank you for your suggestion, Vicente. So Rook takes E5 was indeed the move that you played. Okay, by this stage, it's all heading in the right direction for White.
Yeah, although there's still some element of danger because of the threats against D1 and B2. So the next move is fairly crucial, actually.
Yeah, so it went bishop e6. Okay, so here we go. We've got
Mm,
quite a few have suggested rook takes e5. So now it's white to play again. So
mm.
here we go.
Now comes the really difficult part.
Yep. So let's have your suggestions, please. Yeah, I mean, there's lots to take. My first thought, to be honest, would be uh, rook takes e6 check.
Yes.
But
Then pawn takes and queen
queen
takes.
takes,
Check.
yes.
Bishop e7, I
Bishop
suppose.
e7, yeah, it's not over yet. But there's something that is absolutely decisive. Yeah, agent M838 who is suggesting rook takes e6, but there's actually something stronger. Vicente also wants rook takes bishop, but no, there's something stronger, folks. This is the clever bit. This wasn't some almighty time scramble just to add to the fun, was it?
No, no, this is it's only move 24, and I don't think we were in bad time trouble at all.
Okay, yeah.
I don't remember that, but I'm fairly sure that we had both plenty of time left.
Agent M838, and Abhinandan Shahil, all suggesting, both of them suggesting bishop c6 check. Very well done. Excellent.
Bravo. Yes,
Bravo.
excellent.
Which forces, of course, queen takes c6.
Which takes the pressure off b2 and d1.
And then it's possible to play. Okay, I'm going to rush on because I've got quite a few more positions that I'd actually like to get through. So you took.
Yeah. Now I can just take with a pawn.
Yeah.
And the position collapses.
Yeah. Okay, so a final little flourish here. And queen takes h6.
Yes.
Grabbing another pawn and
yes, and pinning the bishop, of course.
These pins, are absolutely decisive. So, and that's where Jonathan resigned.
Yes.
Nice game, excellent. Thanks everyone for your suggestions. Any further thoughts on this one before I move on? Okay, so let's come to the next one. Aha! Now, what have we got here? I don't know why I've been given an American flag here. That's some strange quirk of the software. So, do you know what? This is really interesting because I've been reading your book over the past week, and I came to this open tournament, Ostend, in 1984, and I had quite forgotten that we'd actually played in Ostend in 1984. I mean, we've played a few times over the years.
Yes.
And it suddenly brought back this flood of memories. And this game...
Good.
I don't have this in my database, actually. And suddenly, all these thoughts came back to me. It was a very long game. A really long game.
Yeah.
And
well, that's actually exactly what happened to me when I was writing the book. When I went through all the games that I had saved, this was exactly what happened to me. That while going through the moves, and sometimes also through my own comments after the game, all these memories came back to me. So that was actually what enabled me to make it a more psychological book, if you like. And not just a chess technical story.
Well, let me tell you one of the memories I have of this, which I'd completely forgotten, was, I don't know, do you remember an English player called John Nicholson? I haven't seen him for a few years, actually. Very nice guy. And we must have adjourned this game at move 40.
We did. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure what move 40 is, but we did adjourn,
Yeah, so, and... I mean, actually, the whole game was, from my memory, it was very complicated. I mean, you only give a little extract of the end of the game, but
Yeah.
I think it was some kind of F4 Grand Prix attack that I played as
Something.
white.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that. Did it go E4, C5, F4, E6, Knight F3, D5, Bishop B5 check? Something like this.
Possibly it was that. Yes, it
Yeah.
definitely
I,
was semi-closed Sicilian.
yeah.
But I'd have to look it up now. I've
Yeah.
forgotten how it went. It definitely was a very tense game.
Yeah, a very, very complex game because I think I castled kingside, and I think you castled queenside, and
Mm.
advanced your queenside pawns as well. So it was a really complex game, and the adjourned position from memory, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I remember it was still highly complex. But I
Yes.
think we had something like an hour or an hour and a half to analyze before we actually resumed. I mean, it was really a tight schedule.
Yes, I suppose so. At least that was a sort of standard schedule, wasn't
Yeah.
it? We started at perhaps one o'clock in the afternoon, 5 hours of play,
Mm.
break at 6 o'clock, and then probably at 8 o'clock or thereabouts, resumption.
Yeah. And I think I went to eat something with John Nicholson,
Hmm.
and we were sort of analysing the game a little bit because it's that there was always that feeling, when you have such a short break. I mean,
Mm.
people will have no concept of what an adjourned game is
No.
and what it was like to play an adjourned
Yeah.
game.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have that thing, oh my goodness, you've just been playing for over 5 hours.
Yeah.
You're tired, you're desperately hungry,
Yeah.
but you also want to analyze this game.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it really wasn't clear what your sealed move would be. I couldn't,
Mm.
it was really difficult. And I remember John suggested a move.
Hmm.
And I said to him very arrogantly, yeah, Salih says, what is an adjourned game? It's where you stop the game, you break the game,
Hmm.
and the player to move writes down their intended move, and it's put in an envelope. Their score sheet is put in an envelope. The arbiter takes the envelope, and then you resume the game after a certain period of time, 1 or 2 hours. So that's what an adjourned game is. So John suggested a move, and I said, I will bet you 50 beers that Paul will never play that move.
Okay.
And we continued analysing, and what happened?
Uh-huh.
Of
You lost
course,
50 beers. Yeah.
I lost 50 beers.
Mm.
Sally said it was a rhetorical question. Yeah, and John, being such a nice guy, said, don't worry about the 50. I was very sheepish after the game, and he said, don't worry about it. He's a very
Very good
nice
at
guy. It was. I exclaimed it more in kind of, oh, don't be ridiculous. And of course, you played this move. So that was one of my memories of playing this game. And the other memory is that yes, I messed up this game,
Yeah.
but I had no recollection how. But we're going to
Mm.
see how. So first of all, it's white to play. I'm playing white. We both have passed pawns. My passed pawn is just one step from
Yeah.
promotion.
Mm.
Yours is 2 steps behind. So basically, I stand better with white.
Yeah.
So I'm going to throw it out there to our viewers. If you were playing white, how would you play here? And it's funny looking at this now. I mean, you gave a forced win in your analysis, which is fair enough.
Mm.
Agent M838 says, "I'd take the 50 beers in a heartbeat." um, but actually, yes, there's a forced win. But actually, I understand why I played the move I played
Mm.
because it's a practical move.
Well, as far as I remember, you had been winning for quite some time, and we were both surprised how tricky this ending still is.
Yes.
So I remember a feeling of satisfaction that I managed to get you into this tricky queen ending.
Absolutely.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was indeed, it was far more difficult than I'd imagined, and I completely overlooked your very clever idea. Um, so, anyone, I'm not getting a suggestion from our viewers.
I'm not surprised because it isn't so easy
No,
actually.
it's
It
not.
isn't so easy, and making a decision in this position isn't easy either. I mean, you can't call this a simple win because there's so many alternatives. You've got to pick out exactly the right variation.
Yeah, and at this stage, we're probably into, I don't know, perhaps even sixth, seventh hour of playing.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Vicente is suggesting Queen F8.
Hmm.
It could be a good move. I don't know.
Well, we really have to look into it. I suppose D2 is the move to look at,
Hmm.
or maybe Queen F4 check, eliminating the queens, then D2, and then
Well,
we'll.
we reach something similar to that.
Mhm.
Um, yes, we have Beloglavi suggests Queen G6, and in fact, this is something that you mentioned in the book. I mean, it's sort of the
Mhm.
move that White would like to play, but
Ah,
actually,
yeah.
this results in a perpetual check.
Yes, that's the first point about the
Yeah.
position, that
Mm.
this does not win for white.
Yeah.
That's what makes it difficult.
Yeah.
This, of course, would have been the easy solution, but it doesn't work.
Yeah. In fact, you give a variation in the book. Um, you give Queen F6 check. I'm just
Mhm.
going to play this out because when I played through it, I
Mhm.
didn't find this at all simple, I have to
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you gave an annotation. However, White has a rather simple win. A4. I mean, it's A4. Wow. That's a really great move, actually. And one of the points is that it's possible, actually, to exchange queens with Queen B5.
Ah, right.
Um,
Yes.
but
Yes.
I don't know. Simple, I'm not sure.
No, simple is not the right word. I
Yeah.
suppose it's a bit arrogant even to call this a simple win, but
Yeah.
I suppose that's the way we talked about our games back then.
But it's interesting. I put this into the computer. I'm afraid
Mhm. Good.
I'm
Yeah.
lazy. And
Hmm.
the computer suggested Queen G5. And actually,
Ah,
that is relatively simple.
okay.
Because after, well, first of all, there's a threat. And it covers F4, of course.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then, well, D2 can be taken. And White
Yeah.
retains that pawn.
Yeah.
And if Queen G8, well, this gains a big tempo.
Yeah. Yeah. No, Queen G8 can never be a
Yeah,
good move.
exactly.
Uh, if I have to play Queen G8, it's a very clear win.
So
Well, I don't
probably
remember Queen G5 at all, but
no.
if the computer says so, and it does look convincing, I must say.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best that Black has is simply to give the D pawn, but of course, once White retains the pawn on G7. Ah, I've got it. Douglas Griffin has just joined
Hmm.
the broadcast, and he says, "Can I just say what a wonderful book in black and white is? I got my copy last week, and it's been very hard to put down." There you are. That's
Oh, wow.
Douglas. That's how exactly how I feel about the book because I've only had it for a week and I haven't finished it because it's a big book, and I've really enjoyed reading it actually. So yeah, there we are. Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you very much, Douglas.
Okay, so let's have a look at what I played. So I played a practical move. I took this pawn
Yeah.
because I mean I can imagine that I would have felt well it eliminates these kind of perpetuals. That's one thing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I can't play D2 because of Queen D6 here. So it looks like a very sound move.
yeah, I don't it's not a bad move, but it's not winning.
Mm.
So the game went like this,
Mm.
and And here, well, this is interesting because I played. You say in the book that we were both in time pressure,
Okay.
and I played King H4, which was, yeah, slightly. You said it was a slightly shocking move, but in fact, it's not that good.
I suppose you are looking at queen takes d2, queen c7 check, and you will lose your pawn on g7, and you are trying to improve on that variation.
Yeah, and I think it sort of makes sense because you tuck I tuck the king out of the way, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I give you a move,
Mm.
but you simply played queen f7, and then we exchanged pawns actually.
Yeah, then it probably comes down to the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and here is where I missed your idea,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you say that if I'd simply played g5,
Mm-hmm.
this would still black would still have faced a hopeless task.
Yeah.
Well, possibly, yeah. It's. I mean, it's certainly winning for white, but yeah,
Mm.
queens. I've learned to respect queens over the years.
Yes,
They're so tricky.
I
But I,
suppose there would have been some life in the position yet, but
yeah, but it's winning. But I played queen d3, which is one of those moves that feels secure.
yeah, yeah.
But I had complete because it protects this. I mean, but it's quite possible I hadn't even appreciated that this was the best move. Perhaps I was expecting the king to go back, or I don't know what I thought. And this is protected, and I must have just thought, well, okay, this is winning. Now, before you say anything else, Paul, I'm
Mm.
going to hand this over to our viewers. So, black to play. What should black play here? Black to play. Oh, it's gone very quiet over there suddenly. Black to play. Oh, everyone's obviously just thinking very hard.
It's not a matter of thinking hard. It's a matter of thinking simple.
Yeah. The funny thing is, this particular theme is
Mm.
probably one of my favourite themes in chess, actually.
Okay.
There we go. And suddenly, yeah, Volker, Alex, Why Am I in My Shoes, Stalemate. Yeah, they've all got it. Yeah, well done.
Yes.
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's one of my favourite themes actually in chess. I have a whole collection of
Oh yeah.
stalemate puzzles. I really enjoy giving lectures on this theme.
Oh
Actually,
yes. Wow. Wow.
I absolutely love stalemates because it always feels as though I love these. It's like a movie when the underdog comes through. You're in some desperate situation. It's Indiana Jones, and suddenly it looks
Yes.
like you're doomed, and then suddenly you find a way to save yourself. So
Yeah.
I love stalemates.
Well, that's actually a very good description of how I felt probably during this game. That I couldn't quite believe it myself that this defense simply saved the game.
Yeah,
Because it's not just about preventing G5, but why it can't make progress anymore.
yeah. This is the incredible thing. So let's just show the rest of the game very quickly because I can see where I want to look at some more games. So Queen E3 is what I played because of G5 because of this stalemate trick.
Yeah.
So the game went like this. So basically, it's kind of hesitation. I mean, I want to play G5 and to be able to capture with the queen, but
But
it went
also
like
you eliminate the stalemate, so
yeah,
it looks
exactly, yeah,
like a safe move. Yeah.
yeah. And now you came up with this beautiful idea, absolutely beautiful, Queen D3. I mean, this is
Yeah.
extraordinary. It's wonderful.
Mhm.
So again, this is stalemate. So I played like
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Now, in fact, you can actually take on A3 here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really. But in any case, what you did is actually very safe.
Yeah.
You just started checking. And yeah, as you point out in the book, the problem is that, in fact, in many positions you can simply take here because the a pawn is far enough
Mm.
up the board, and around about here, well, I just gave up. Actually, I offered a draw.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no further progress to be made.
No.
Yeah, a fantastic save. I do you know what? I think this was the penultimate round, wasn't it?
Um, that I don't remember, but I do remember that a lot depended on this game. I'm
Yeah,
not sure prize money or just honor, but yes, we must have been looking at the final standings of the tournament
yeah.
already. Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I have no recollection whatsoever of what I did in the final round.
Oh, well.
Absolutely none at all. But I remember, but I do remember the feeling of
Mm,
we finished the game very late at night, and
yes.
as is traditional in these open tournaments in the
Mm,
last round, that one had to get up very early in the morning, and you played at some godforsaken hour.
yeah. 10 o'clock, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to bounce from there
Mm.
because I want to talk about an opening that you say
Ah, yes.
you fell in love. You fell
Yeah.
in love with
Yeah.
the Queen's Gambit. Now, that's probably going to surprise a lot of people. So tell me about why you you just clicked with the Queen's Gambit decline for black.
Yeah, this is one of the things which again surprised myself. Um, at the time, this was in the early 80s, I was writing a book about the Queen's Gambit,
Mm-hmm.
and being of a sort of practical nature, I decided that I might as well use the knowledge in my games. So I
Mm.
started playing one variation of the Queen's Gambit, didn't work. Tried another one, didn't work either. And then I hit upon the old Tartakower variation. And then suddenly everything changed. I won my first game with it very easily against Gert Lichtering, who was an international master of about my strength at that time. And from then on, I suppose I did fall in love. I just discovered that once I had the Queen's Gambit declined, the classical variations, I just couldn't make mistakes. I knew where my pieces had to go. I knew when I had to defend and when I had to attack. And it simply suited me like a new pair of something,
Yeah.
which you would never have dreamt of having an effect like that.
Paul, let me
So,
just very quickly show exactly
mhm,
what the Tartakover variation is.
yeah,
So it goes like this, roughly.
yeah, which
Um,
was the main line at the time.
yeah, and now b6.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
And put the bishop on d7. That's the Tartakower variation, and that's what, let's say, Black's life depended on in those days.
And of course, in the mid 1980s, this
Mm.
was absolutely at its theoretical peak, you could say, in the 1980s
Yeah,
when
yeah,
Karpov and Kasparov were playing this in their world championship matches.
yeah, yeah,
And it was such a hot topic. It
yeah,
really was. Because they were playing it with both colours, of course.
yeah. They were playing it with both colors. Many other players were also playing it. So new discoveries were being made every
Mm.
week. And I just love to follow all these developments.
Mm.
I
Well, I have to say, I feel exactly the same about the Open because I switched around for many years. And curiously, I remember, in fact, this game is from 1985.
Mhm.
And I played it, I played the Queen's Gambit, the Tartakover variation, for the first time in 1985.
Hmm.
For the reason that I played my first tournament in the Soviet Union in
Oh,
1985.
yeah,
And I looked at my openings and I was fiddling around with the Grunfeld and the Benoni and frankly they just weren't up to much, and
You thought these Soviets are going to butcher me if
I'm
I.
going to get butchered. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I thought, right, I need to learn something classical and proper, and
yeah,
this is, you can't refute this opening.
yeah.
So that's when I started playing the Queen's Gambit Declined. But this game, let's talk about this game. So you're playing black against Ricardo Calvo. Now, Ricardo was an international master from Spain, I seem to remember.
From Spain. I think he had his heyday in the 60s, perhaps. In 1985, he was already in his 50s or 60s, so not a very strong player anymore. But still, last round where there was a lot of money at stake, I considered him a serious opponent.
Yeah. So he played this
The exchange variation.
exchange variation, which is such a common line now, of course.
Yeah.
What's your feeling about it?
Well, this is probably the line which has troubled me the most in
Oh,
my Queen's Gambit career, yes.
really?
Not that my results have been bad, but I have lost some games where I really didn't understand what was going on, which was a very troubling feeling, of course. And I think it's also the most elastic, the most flexible game setup for white. So what you just said about the Queen's Gambit, you can't refuse it. That's probably, if you look at it objectively, what attracted me in the Queen's Gambit Declined. That at the time there were no really sharp variations where your life depended on making the best move 5 times in a row. You couldn't refuse it, but the exchange variation I always found came close.
Oh, really? That bad? Near to a
That,
refutation.
that
Interesting.
that was, yeah, that was my feeling. But of course, it did have a bright side because that's what I spent a lot of time on. So I didn't actually have a bad score against the exchange variation, but it troubled me more than other variations.
Interesting. And Ricardo plays in a
Mm.
very sharp manner against it,
Mm.
with after h6,
Yeah.
h4. Oh,
Yeah.
here we go.
I remember this gave me almost a heart attack.
So, what
Um,
was the tournament? Just if,
this was an open tournament. It was actually called the Open Mondial, the World Open, which was a very grand name for a very average open tournament. But the prize fund was very good.
Oh, that was more mondial.
That was a really Mondial prize fund. Yes.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So Ricardo went for it.
Yes, and this was the moment which gave me a shock. The realization that he was just going to play Queen D3 and kill me on H7. But then, of course, I calmed down and my more rational self took over from my emotional self, and
Not
it all
easy.
turned out to be rather feeble for white, actually.
We have a comment here from Why Are Men in My Shoes? Great handle. He's been a regular on the channel for some years. He asks, how did you file or follow week to week developments in variations such as the Tartagar in the 1980s, including ideas from tournaments on other continents?
Mm.
How did you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good question.
in those
Well,
days, of course, before databases.
yes. It's a good question, but all we had was newspapers, chess magazines, and well, bulletins.
Mm.
So it all reached us. It took much more time to reach us, the players.
Mm.
Uh, Basically, it's the same as the internet today. Only internet takes only 5 seconds. And we had to wait for the postman to arrive with all the important chess magazines. But basically, it was the same.
It's interesting. I was talking to Zigord Zlanka. Perhaps you know him
Oh, yeah, yeah,
from
yeah, yeah,
Latvia. I don't know.
yeah,
Did
yeah.
you ever play against
Yes,
Zigords?
I played a couple of games against him.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So he was saying that, let's say in the 1980s, that the the chess club in Riga
Mm.
had an archive where there was a team that assembled all the magazines in the world that they could. They were all sent there, and they had archives like card indexes
Oh, yes,
of
yes.
every single opening.
Wow.
And this was the sort of Latvian laboratory.
Hmm.
And if you wanted to research something, you just went there. He said it was so up to date. He said it was absolutely fantastic.
Oh, I'm jealous.
Yeah, yeah, me too.
Uh,
Yeah, incredible. Okay, so let's carry on with the game. So you bravely took the piece
and then I
and
gave it back.
gave it back. Yeah, but still,
Yeah.
you've opened up the H file for him.
Mm.
No fear.
No.
But there is a problem, of course, that the queen and bishop are sort
Yeah,
of the wrong way round now.
exactly. If you would switch them around, White would
Mm,
probably have an excellent position.
mm,
But now White is going to be behind in development, really.
yeah. So
That
let me get to the critical moment, and then I'm going
yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
ask our
Now
viewers.
comes the enemy. Yes, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here we go. So it is black to play. Now, everyone, our viewers, how do you play with black here? It's interesting that for some players, there's a feeling that the Queen's Gambit is not as dynamic or exciting as, let's say, I don't know, the King's Indian. Or
Mm.
I've never really experienced that in practice. And
No.
actually, I've so often got very sharp positions, actually. I don't know if that was your experience.
Definitely was my experience as well.
Mm.
I think it only leads to boring positions if you want to play boring positions. But if you just use it as a solid way to open the game, then the middle game will develop just as complicatedly and sharply as you want it to be, and your opponent, of course.
Exactly. And I think this is interesting that, in a way, you didn't have to make the running here because Ricardo,
Mm.
he introduced, the slightly
Yeah,
offbeat attack.
yeah.
So, you had to defend, but yeah, we've got a very interesting position. Now, we've got rook takes e3 has been suggested. Probably bishop takes knight, I guess.
That would be the problem, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but we have others. We have, let me see, Yves Leroy
Hmm.
suggests knight takes e3. Well done,
Very,
Yves.
very good, Eve. Yes.
Uh,
Yeah. This is not a combination which wins outright, but Black will now dominate the position, and it'll be very, very difficult for White to untangle his knights with the bishop out on a2 doing absolutely nothing.
I should also mention that this kind of sacrifice is actually relatively common in the Queen's Gambit. So often, when you have a rook on e8 and
Mm.
playing on this semi open file, that
Mm.
tactics happen.
Yeah, maybe that's true. Well, maybe it'll surprise many players, white players, that their position isn't quite as solid as they had imagined.
Yeah, very true. So the game, I just want to finish this off fairly
Yeah.
quickly.
Mhm.
Nice little sacrifice here.
Yeah.
And now
Now it's very concrete, and now it's a question of mate in a few moves.
I'm going to offer this to our viewers.
Mhm.
So black to play. And a very satisfying winning move.
Yes. Yeah, I remember this is one of the moves which gave me tremendous satisfaction.
I can well imagine. Yeah.
I can still feel it.
Oh, really?
Yes. So it's now almost 40 years ago, but when I look at this diagram, I can still feel the pride, I think, in having actually played this move, this final move.
That's great. Now I've got a couple of viewers are suggesting King G7.
Yeah, that's a good move,
It's
but
a
there's
good move.
another one.
It looks like a good move.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, everyone's suggesting King G7. It's an
Yeah,
attractive move.
yeah, yeah.
I guess it's
I guess White will have to move the knight, which in a way is impossible. So he'll probably play knight f5 check. Bishop takes f5, rook takes f5. And I'm not quite sure if black is winning outright. He may be, but there's something much stronger.
we have Agent M838 has had a second bite of the cherry, and has suggested Queen D8.
Yes, because a queen on h4 is more effective than a rook on h8.
A very attractive winning move. So I
Hmm.
mean, I suppose this is still possible, but
Yeah, but now I can just take it, and the threat of queen h4 check
yeah,
is much, as I said, a much bigger one than the rook h8 check.
yeah. I can see. Do you know what? Our time is disappearing, and I'd prepared so many more games,
Yeah, I'm
but
sorry about that.
I do want to move on from. Yes, well done, Agent M838. I want to move on from In Black and White, which I would say to our viewers, I highly recommend. It's absolutely fascinating. Because I think, as I mentioned at the start, Paul, you're so candid in your feelings, and I think every chess player will recognize these emotions that you describe, the triumphs, the failures, and your feelings about them, which is, I found, very relatable. But I want to talk about this book,
Okay.
Mindful Chess, which has the strapline "The Spiritual Journey of a Professional Chess Player." So this has just appeared. Um, tell us tell us a little bit about this book, and why you decided to write it.
I decided to write it because I was asked to write it. Um, Remmelt Otten, the editor of New in Chess, knew that I have practiced meditation and had have written about my thoughts about that. And he asked me to write a book where I sort of try to integrate my views on meditation and, let's say, spirituality in general with my feelings about my chess career. So I have attempted to do that, and this book is the result.
Well, I can say this. It's quite a short book. It's about 120 pages. It's actually very beautifully typeset, very beautifully presented, and I went through with a pencil and I started underlining little passages, and,
Okay.
and then and then I found that on every page I was underlining everything,
Oh,
and so in the end I just thought, okay, I'm going to read it. It's kind of much simpler because I found it absolutely fascinating and very relatable. And again, you're very candid with your feelings. And instead of sort of talking about the philosophy of it, what I want to do is plunge in straight
mhm,
away with a game of chess, because I want to
mhm,
relate it to the chess
mhm.
rather than the philosophy, but perhaps we can match the two. So this was a game that there are just a few chess extracts in this book, but this was one that you selected. So this was played in the Reykjavik Open in 1986. Could you talk a
Mhm.
little bit about this?
Yeah. Yeah, this game, so this was an open tournament, the Reykjavik Open. It's still going strong. It's a very, usually very strong tournament.
First round today. First
Oh
round,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And this is a game against an well, not very well known Icelandic amateur. Um, this is the sort of game which nobody normally would include in a best games collection because it's just not a game between, let's say, equal players. It's a game that you are supposed to win with black, or that felt I was supposed to win. But I've included it because I felt just so uniquely relaxed and even happy and totally unworried in this game. And when I wrote the book Mindful Chess, I have tried to understand what happened to me on that day and why it only happened on that day and not in any other games of the tournament.
So what happened?
Well, actually, I still don't know. Uh, all things spiritual, my idea is that you just can't really say anything about them because they're too unputtable in words. But I think what happened was that that morning I went to view a geyser with an Icelandic friend, and the enormity of that nature uh, made me made my mind change gears from my normal chess self to feeling just that very, 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 very tiny particle of the universe. And I think I took that feeling with me into the tournament hall, and being this incredibly insignificant particle of the universe, I played with much more joy than as my normal self. And this translated into into an intense feeling of happiness. So throughout the whole game, I was just intensely happy. I was really sorry when I resigned.
that's that's very unusual. That's very
Yeah,
unusual.
yeah.
When I've sometimes when I've felt very happy and very relaxed, I've played absolutely appallingly because I haven't
That's exactly what normally happens.
I haven't
Yes.
felt the tension.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and
You
I
need the
need
tension.
that. I
Yeah,
need to feel that fight or flight feeling
exactly.
where you
You have to be
you've got
afraid.
this opponent opposite you who you know wants to
Yeah,
kill you,
yeah,
and you better
yeah.
kill him.
Exactly.
So
Yes.
it somehow worked in your favor on this day.
Well, I know exactly what you mean, and I've had these experiences too. But somehow on this day, it just was so strong that it was a totally different experience, and I could only play the right moves. There was just no part of my system which did not want to play the right moves.
So there was just simply no anxiety,
There was no
no
anxiety,
doubts.
no doubts,
Yeah.
no, nothing really. There was just the moves. Well, probably there was no me. That is probably what happened.
Ah.
Me with all my mental makeup, was simply not there that day.
Okay. Well, let's before we continue with those
Mm,
thoughts, let's
mm.
just ask our viewers what they would play with black in this position. So black to play. So okay, just while everyone's thinking about this position, black to play. Um, I mean, I took so many things from this book. I found it so it's just so show it again on screen. I found it fascinating. It seemed to me that you when you finished your professional chess career, that you struggled with your identity a little bit, and
Sort of. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
that's how I found that's what I've been grappling with for a long time.
Mhm.
Now that
Mm.
I'm no longer a chess player, but I'm
Mm. Yeah.
something in this chess firmament,
Yeah.
and I found it difficult, and I dread that kind of dinner party question. So, what do you do for a living? or,
Yeah.
or yeah, basically they're asking you about, because often your work gives you your identity. So if
Yeah.
you're asked that question now, that's
Now.
the dreaded dinner party question.
Mm.
Um, how do you answer? What do you do for a living?
Well, I'm 67 now, actually 68 day after tomorrow.
Ah,
And
congratulations.
thank you. So now I've reached an age where I can safely say I'm doing nothing anymore. And people will simply accept that because they assume you live on your old age pension or something like that, and that you don't have to work anymore. But it's true that the 20 years or so between the moment when I gave up chess and when I reached the age of 65, yes, that was a question which I have usually answered. Well, my first line of defense was nothing. I just do nothing. And many people accept that. They don't know what you mean with by that, but many people are polite enough to stop questioning you further. But if they do go further, I say, okay, I still play. I don't play chess, but I write about chess and I do things like commentary. I teach. And then, well, anybody who knows something about chess will understand, well, but you can't earn enough money by doing these things. But most people who don't know chess assume, okay, that's a fair living to be made. So I've never really had a problem with this question.
Hmm.
But of course, it's not just about what people ask you, but about your self identity, yourself. How do I answer that question? That's the real point, I think.
Exactly.
Yes, and well, that is probably why I went into meditation to discover the why of, let's say, life. And that's again, you now get into territory where talking about it is really uh, amounts to talking nonsense. But if we try anyway, then I should say meditation has opened my eyes to the deeper realities of why people do things and why things happen to people, and let's say why we all want to be happy and have lots of trouble being so.
Hmm. Well, I can say all I can say is that if people are thinking, well, this is sounds a little bit too esoteric. Um,
It's true, but that's because I now talk about it. And then, as I say, I can't help talking nonsense. I think I'm a little bit better at writing about it. And that's where the book comes in.
but that's what I wanted to say. In fact,
Mm.
I didn't find the book too esoteric at all. I found
Good.
it wholly relatable and
Excellent.
absolutely fascinating, but also very funny. And I
Good.
think this is what I should mention also about your autobiography in black and white. There are also some very, very humorous passages to it that I think every chess player can relate to. Um, so yeah, I warmly recommend this to everyone. I really do. I think it's a really fascinating book, and yes, there are so many passages that um, I wanted to read out actually. Um, I wonder if I can flick through and find something. But anyway, it's too difficult to take something out of context. But yeah, it's a really, really interesting book. Let's just get back to this position very quickly because I know there are a few people that have suggested the correct move. You played Rook takes f2. And you were feeling blissful.
I was, but not particularly because I was mating him now. I just felt blissful for playing chess.
Yeah. So king takes f2. I guess you've got queen f6.
Or
is rook f8? Is this even stronger?
Rook f8 check, king g2, queen e4 check. I think that's
yes, and
fairly easy.
And bishop takes d4.
Right.
Is this
queen e4 anyway, I think.
Queen e4 anyway. Yes, it certainly doesn't look bad.
Or is there something better? Maybe there was something better actually after king takes f2. I didn't really think about that. What did queen f6 check? Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed queen f6.
Yeah.
But maybe rook f8 is
no. This is simple because I'm taking the knight on d4, except when he plays knight f5. But then I'm taking the knight on f5.
Yeah. So the game finished knight f5, check, and then you could take it, and king g2. And you say you were disappointed when your opponent resigned.
Well, I knew he had to resign, but it was just such a unique experience that yes, I would have wanted to prolong it.
Yeah. Yes, actually, Douglas is pointing out that I think in this position there's I think queen e1 check is just winning, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's the killer.
Yes.
Yeah, that's simple. Thank you, Douglas.
Yeah, very well done.
Yeah. Our time is we're over our time, but I do want to finish with your victory against Gatakamsky in the candidates match. Because I mean this was really special. That there we go. We've got there. I mean, what an experience playing in the candidates.
Yes, it was quite something. I was always sorry I could never repeat that. But playing against Gatakamsky, yes, it was a very, very interesting experience. The second game actually is interesting for many reasons. But for me, above everything else, it was the last time in my career that I played an adjourned game. By 1994, most tournaments didn't adjourn anymore. But FIDE in its World Championship cycle stuck to the old rules. And after a very, very intense middle game, we adjourned in an ending where... is this the game? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a game. So
yes, we something had changed from 1984 when we played that game in Ostend. In 1994, we adjourned after 60 moves. So, yes, in this position. And I remember vividly analyzing this game and going over it countless times, actually, and understanding completely what the position was all about, knowing what he could do wrong, knowing how he should play, and well, just understanding the position fully. And when we played, I was amazed how badly he had analyzed it. He started with a couple of indifferent moves, then reached the critical position where there was only one move to save the game, then missed that move, and I just reeled off my prepared variations, and the final position I had actually had on the board that morning.
That's very satisfying. Let me just break in very briefly. there was always this feeling in English chess circles, playing for the English team when we had these Germans, that the Soviets were always brilliant at their adjournment analysis. And
Yeah.
we always seemed to get caught out really badly. They were always better than us. So it's really refreshing to hear a story where you actually got the better of, well, in those days, not quite a Soviet player, but of course, Gato grew up in the Soviet Union.
I suppose if he would still have been a Soviet player, this would never have happened to him. Of course, he had emigrated to the US some years previously, 89, I think. And at the time, in 1994, he was accompanied only by his father. And his father wasn't a very strong chess player. And moreover, he was not a very strong chess player who thought he was a good chess player. So I quite understand that Gata was misled by whatever his father thought about this position. But still, yes, it's very, very satisfying to have out-analyzed him in this German position. Now, I can still enjoy this sequence of moves.
Well, let me ask. I mean, this is very, very difficult, and to explain this is not simple.
No, it's true. So it's quite understandable that Gata missed the right move in this position because, as you say, it is very not obvious at all. Only, of course, he should have analyzed this. That's the whole thing. And I did analyze it.
Okay, so white play. How does white draw? Excuse me a second.
That's a very, very tough task to set to the readers, to the viewers.
Yeah, very tough.
I think without a lot of time to look into this, you can only guess what the right move is and the wrong move.
Well, okay, let me show what happened in the game. So king c4, and this next move is brilliant. Really brilliant. King c6, very surprising winning move.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to zip through.
Yeah.
And
he's taking all my pawns except the last one. And the last one, of course, wins.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to understand this ending, I'm afraid you have to spend some time on it.
It's very deep.
Yes.
And in fact, the drawing move is h4. It's very hard to explain.
Yeah, I couldn't explain it now, actually. No.
But I think this is without going into h4, I think king c6, I think is quite a difficult move to foresee, and it's difficult to understand.
It's interesting that you say that because I remember that this was the first point after adjournment where Gata started to think. Up to here, he had made all his moves fairly casually, as if there wasn't a problem at all, which in a way is true. It was an easy draw. And after king c6, he sank into very, very deep thought. But then, of course, he couldn't get himself out of the very, very deep trouble that white is in now.
So you won this game, and that was 1-1 in the match.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's... And then, okay, things started to go a bit wrong.
Well, yeah.
But still, I think it's great to have this game, So I think, do you know what? I think I want to leave things with this position on the board because it's so nice, and it's an absolutely fascinating game. And I should say also, again, I think we're going to have to sign off now.
Yeah. Okay.
As things are getting late. but also, you know, your book's absolutely fascinating. So Mindful Chess, which I warmly recommend. And then you have, there we go, In Black and White, your autobiography. And I can highly recommend both books. They're really instructive. They're very relatable. They're very funny, I have to say. I found them very fun. Maybe you didn't intend them to be, but
Oh yes, I did.
you
Yes.
did. Good.
Yeah.
And I think one can have hours of enormous pleasure going through these books. So yeah, I've left the links to New in Chess in the chat there, so one can buy the books directly from New in Chess, and yeah, as I said, I warmly recommend them. So Paul, thank you very much for joining the broadcast. It was really nice to chat, and yeah, we could go on for hours, but I think it's time to go, basically.
Yeah. Thanks very much for having me, Dan.
No,
I enjoyed it.
not at all, not at all. It's been really nice. So thanks everyone for joining us on the broadcast. Of course, if you want to watch any of this later, you can. It'll be on the YouTube channel. And yeah, till the next time. Thanks everyone for joining me. Bye now.